Our school of Christianity has its own rhythm that most of you know, has its own text called the Truth of Love, and many moments of encountering with the individual groups of communion where reflection is taken up and developed both at the level of local communities and at the level of small groups. We have arrived at the step of our journey of the School of Christianity at the last chapter. Tonight we will discuss the first half of it. It is on the family. The surprise is this. On the one hand, we should have arrived at the easiest part, that to which we are more accustomed to, that where there is more to our hearts, where the true love has a truth, that this truth touches us at the heart. It touches people that we love, our husband, wife, children, friends, the community. And then we should be at the moment in which even a lecture, sometimes a bit tiring, becomes easier. The waters which are in the river to reach the delta that plunges into the sea. However, things are not so. We have arrived at the most difficult part of the School of Christianity. I will explain why. Perhaps this evening, it will take a little effort for you to begin to understand. If you take the chapter, in the chapter you will find 5 or 6 pages that tell the story of a family. The family history of Saint Augustus, and these are simple. Read them, and you will be able to understand what can make the grace of God. In the first of these pages, there are some reflections on the family. I will cite some places, some slogans. The family is the place where we learn and teach love. The family is the place where we engage in building the more important in our life. The family is the place where we strive to live as people in communion. The family is the womb of tenderness where we are born a new life, new people. The man who has no one to which to belong to may not even belong to himself. Freedom lives only when the person can give himself and can build a hospital home. There is also a synthetic formula, very beautiful and profound. It is this. In the family, we learn to love love. It seems like a play on words, but it is not. Learn to love love is true even when in the family love becomes tiring. Each of these expressions can be explained. But the reality is this. The reality is this. If I am speaking of the family, you think of the Christian family as an event and a social experience, and then the church as a family of families. That was the fact that in some way has been imposed with Christianity. The world of the early centuries was converted especially in front of an experience of love, of families, of relationships between parents and children, of the community to which the pagan world had not been accustomed. But today we find ourselves in this situation. It is difficult. It is as if I had to speak to you of a beautiful house, how you built it, how one lives in it, how it is decorated, how you make it nice and hospitable. However, all the while I'm speaking of this, and I speak of this, there is a bombardment that is destroying the homes of our city. It would have been a nice discussion, but is a terrible discussion, because it will tear at your heart. I do not say this because you hear the rumblings of war, but because even people who took care of us Christians, the pontiffs, in recent years have arrived to speak explicitly of war in regard to the family. The family is subjected and attacked by a real war at world level. So before proceeding, I want that all of us have a minimal documentation. This first documentation is already mentioned in the text. On April 17th, 1994, on the world news, there were bouncing harsh words that John Paul II had pronounced in a Roman parish. I have to return to the Vatican to preach, especially to pray for the Regina Coeli. And then I have to return to fight a program. A project done with the United Nations who want to destroy the family. My God, United Nations, I will simply tell them, let us think again, repent. If you are the United Nations, you cannot divide and destroy. And then he returns to the Vatican and to the people present at the Regina Coeli and said, the family is not an institution that you can modify as desired. The family belongs to the patrimony that is more original and sacred of humanity. It comes before the state that has the duty to recognize it and to protect it on the basis of ethico-social evidence, easily understandable. That which is a threat to the family is a threat to man, and today there is an urgent need, more than ever, to react against models of behavior which are the fruit of hedonistic culture and permissive, for which the unselfish gift of self, the control of instincts, the sense of responsibility, to seem to be concepts related to a bygone era. I wonder, what will bring to society this ethical permissiveness? And then we pass to a different discussion where he's speaking with Pope Benedict, who is doing well and has a clear thinking, told me, Your Holiness, this is the age of sin against God the Creator. It is intelligent. God created man and women. He says, In Europe, America, Latin America, and Africa, and in some Asian countries, there are real ideological colonization. And I say this with name and surname, it is gender. Today to children, school teachers, that one sex everyone can choose. And why teach this? Because the books are those of individuals and institutions that give money to you, are the ideological colonization, also supported by countries so influential, and this is terrible. So speaking with Pope Benedict, he's told me, Your Holiness, this is the age of sin against God the Creator. It is intelligent. God created man and women. God has created the world like us. Like this. We are doing the opposite. God has given us a state uncultivated because we made it become culture, and then with this culture we are doing things that bring us back to the state uncultivated. What he said, Pope Benedict, we think. It is the age of sin against God the Creator. And after a few months in Georgia, Pope Bergoglio shoots at zero again against the theory of gender and says, there is a great enemy today of marriage, the theory of gender. Today, there is a world war to destroy marriage, but you do not destroy it with weapons, you destroy it with ideas. There is ideological colonization that destroys. Marriage is the most beautiful thing that God has created. The Bible tells us that God created man and women and created them in his image. The man and the woman that you make one flesh are the image of God. It clarifies indirectly that in the Christian vision, with it there is a place for the union between persons of the same sex. Then he mentioned the difficulties of divorce. Even when Pope Francis was still a cardinal in Latin America, he had a clash with the government that he was doing the law on homosexual marriage. He wrote to the Carmelite monasteries to say that this was the war of the devil against the plan of God. So we must try to understand why this is an act. It concerns the publicity, the education of children, the schools, textbooks. It relates to all the messages that are conveyed through the newspapers. It is one thing of which we are in danger of not realizing. We speak of our house, and in the meantime the houses are literally broken down. We must try to understand where is the question, and because the ideology of gender is supported by international bodies, by the UN, by the European community. And they have made laws which impose themselves to individual states, which no longer have even the problem of fighting at the level of parliament, because they must incorporate decisions already taken and are decisions that come up to the point that tomorrow I can be held responsible, called into question, and under process for what I am saying. So let's try to understand. What does it say, the ideology of gender? It says that sexuality is not a natural phenomenon, but is a cultural fact. Each one is not found to be male and female because of nature. But we are made male and female by the culture. For example, by decision. It seems crazy. But if you go to the internet and type in the search engine gender, you will find that on 36 pages, each screen on the first site indicated is always the same. That of Archie Gay. It says that the ideology of gender does not exist, and it has been invented by priests and some Catholic organizations to cover a lie.
Perché l'hanno inventata? L'hanno inventata i preti, il Vaticano e alcune organizzazioni cattoliche per coprire una menzogna. Quindi è una menzogna per coprire una menzogna.
You accuse the ideology of gender, which does not exist, to cover the fact
Per coprire il fatto che non esiste
that there is a male and female,
femminile, ma esistono
but all the possibilities that freedom gives to man to manage his or her corporeality.
sua corporeità. E quindi poi si elencano, ho letto che ci sono arrivati a 56,
And then they have listed 56 sexual differentiations.
mi sono anche andato preoccupato di andare a vedere quali fossero perché non volevo sporcarmi la mente e la fantasia. No? Quindi il problema è che oggi non
So the problem is,
c'è l'ideologia del genere
they say that the ideology of gender does not exist,
va imposta. Ti dicono che l'ideologia
and that we have invented it,
è una fantasia nostra di
that Christians invented it.
che vogliamo soltanto coprire il fatto che abbiamo detto che la sessualità è un fatto naturale, mentre non lo è. È un fatto di cultura e ognuno può elaborare questa cultura secondo i mille orientamenti che ritrova in sé
And that this is a cultura,
che gli piace sperimentare.
and ogni persona poi can discover their own.
Diventa sistema educativo. Io prima, di leggere un po', di prepararmi, sarei stato pronto a dire che appunto c'è una lotta tra la visione cristiana del matrimonio e l'ideologia del genere, ma il problema è che ti dicono che
So there is this
non esiste, l'abbiamo inventato
there is this war between Christian marriage and the ideology of gender. However, it says that we invented the ideology of gender.
che noi diciamo
The difference is this.
che sull'amore, sulla sessualità,
Christians say that regarding sexuality and the family, there is a design.
noi diciamo che c'è un disegno. E adesso lo spiegheremo bene. È un disegno che appunto risale addirittura a Dio. Risale
It is a
addirittura
plan
c'è un
that dates back to God,
che è bello, che è
to the Trinity, and is beautiful in an impressive way.
invece ti dicono che questo cosiddetto
Instead, you will be told that this design is a whole fantasy of Catholics.
sono 1000 pezzi.
In reality, there is a design,
No, la vede come un bambino
but there are 1,000 pieces, and the beauty is that anyone
e la bellezza
can put the pieces together as he or she wants.
e mettere assieme come vuole. Questa è la differenza. Che chi ti dice
Who tells you that there is a beautiful design, harmonious, significant, true? You investigate, and it wants to dominate over you.
lo fanno i preti,
The Church does it. The Vatican does it. The Pope does it.
c'è un disegno.
Priests do it. Catholic organizations do it.
Diciamo una realtà, quello che sono coloro che sono accusati della teoria
Those who are accused of the theory of gender, in reality, are realists.
delle persone che ti dicono la realtà è
People who say that reality is made of 1,000 pieces,
che ognuno ha
and everyone has the right to cultivate according to his inclinations,
e sente
experiences that they have,
che fa le cose che vuole.
the things they want to experience.
Ancora non si è arrivati a precisare, ma accadrà tra non molto, che tra questi 1000 pezzi ci sono anche quelli dei pezzi pervertiti.
One has not yet arrived to clarity, but it will happen between not much, that between these 1,000 pieces, there are also perverted pieces.
C'era bisogno di
For example, those that date back to the fact that sexuality to give pleasure needs violence,
a un certo punto la logica.
masochism. For them, we invent an ideology to block the reality.
Noi inventiamo un'ideologia per bloccare la realtà. Pensavo, se uno prende anche
If one were to translate
la parola,
the word nature,
se uno dovesse tradurre la parola natura,
translate nature for its etymology,
che viene da
it is from birth.
ed è un natus, no?
natus, comes from nactus. The exact translation would be a little girl who is about to be born. Nature is a birth continuously in action. When the facts tell us that there is not a female womb, that there is not the possibility of procreation, that there is not the sun, so then the pieces are invented. What wonder if the piece is a child bought in the ova in gametes, in the uterus. If it's biology, they just want the facts. The facts which in nature are almost inherent and nice and sweet and fruitful development. The man and the woman become one flesh, and the flesh is not only their flesh, but is the flesh of the child. And if there are not these pieces, they are created artificially with an incredible violence. Go to explain to a child that he is a piece, that he came out from where you do not know, by whom you do not know. The word child comes from the fact that when he begins to articulate language, the first letters that he knows how to speak are mama, 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 and da 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 da. So we have arrived in front of a culture that has arrived on the last level of Christian destruction. When Christians realized that they had to make a judgment on the world, this judgment had 3 levels. Had 3 levels. 1, there is a creator, God. 2, the problems of the world required a salvation, redemption. And the 3rd level, at the end we expect the judgment of God. They were the 3 cornerstones that allowed you to tackle the all-knowing as you had to find your way. The creator, the redeemer, the judge. What happened during history? The first thing, and also we are responsible, it has happened that we have allowed all of the theme of the judgment of God, heaven, purgatory, hell, judgment, to be mocked, to the point that even priests have been scared to talk about it. We have left one of the crucial points of our faith, the judgment of God. And this has been mocked and deleted. Then we have taken Jesus Christ and the whole discourse on him. All this has been reduced to anthropology as a discussion on man. It is man who is God, and that he has in himself a divine origin.
stesso un'origine
It is a man who must build his self-divinization.
sua autodivinizzazione. E tutto il discorso su Cristo è stato usato, svenduto, per un discorso dell'uomo che si autodivinizza. C'era l'ultimo livello, il primo che nessuno osava toccare, talmente era evidente che c'è una natura,
And then there's the level no one has dared to touch,
le cose non le abbiamo fatte noi,
because it is so obvious that there is a creator,
che è Padre.
that we have not made things ourselves, that there is a Father. Even those who did not believe have stood on these things.
L'intervento di Papa Benedetto che dice a Francesco
Pope Benedict said to Pope Francis, "We have arrived at the time of sin against the Creator.
la creazione non è un disegno, è un insieme.
Now the creation is not a design, but a set of parts, and when the parts do not match, we become skillful to construct them in a laboratory."
Detto questo, ripeto, cerchiamo di pensare che non è vero.
It is not true
Siamo noi che costruiamo,
that we build ideologies and then attach it to others.
no, esistono.
The ideologies exist.
Esiste un progetto ideologico.
There is an ideological project of the destruction of the family.
Quando l'uomo non è più legato a quello che chiamiamo famiglia nel senso vero e profondo del termine,
When man is no longer tied to the family in the sense of the indissoluble term,
è quell'uomo lì cui fare.
the consequences that that man there,
Se non appartieni a qualcuno,
you can do to him what you want.
non appartieni a nessuno, neanche a te stesso.
If you do not belong to someone, you do not belong to anyone, not even to yourself.
Con tutte le conseguenze.
With man, you can do what you want with all of the political consequences, social and economic,
Allora
that it is not difficult to imagine.
andiamo adesso alla bellezza del nostro disegno.
Let us return to the beauty of the design,
Ciò di cui
of our
abbiamo
design,
bisogno è di un sussulto
because what we need is a surge of dignity.
delle famiglie che già esistono,
I say this for the families that already exist,
che
the
magari
ones that are struggling,
e che
that are tempted to let go,
tentati di lasciarsi andare e invece devono quello che si può fare in tempo di
what you do in times of peace, you cannot do in times of war. You have to defend the home. You must defend the children.
e soprattutto parlo ai giovani. Poi è stato dimenticato tutta la ricchezza del Dio giudice, del Dio
It
redentore,
has been forgotten all the riches of God the Judge, of God the Redeemer,
anche
of God the Creator. We must reset everything.
mettere
Even a family could put in the world the nostalgia of what is truly human.
ora torniamo un po' all'origine.
Let us return to the origins, to our credo.
Una volta ho letto, non sono un appassionato nel senso
Once I like to read that Our Lady of
di leggere che
Medjugorje,
Medjugorje interrogata su quale fosse la più bella preghiera,
when I was questioned about what was the most beautiful prayer, I answered the credo.
quella che il cielo ama ascoltare, che in cielo i santi amano ascoltare, Dio ama ascoltare il credo. Prendiamo il nostro bel credo e cominciamo a credere in Dio Padre, creatore del cielo e della terra.
Credo meaning Our Father, the prayer of Our Father. That is my most beautiful prayer.
Fatto il nostro Dio, Dio che è una natura d'amore che si esprime in tre persone in comunione, dove la parola persona in comunione, quando pensiamo a Dio, significa una cosa, una persona che è totalmente
And when we think of our Father in this prayer, our God is people in communion,
quando parliamo di Dio Padre,
and is total Himself who gives Himself totally.
Padre che ha un figlio e che poi dopo ha
If we think of God, we think of a Father whose nature is to give us everything He has. It is an abyss of paternity. God the Father
natura
wants to say that He has a Son who receives everything,
diciamo
and that it is just wanting to receive and return to donate.
Padre della Chiesa. E poi questo Dio Padre solo voglia di ricevere e poi voglia di restituire, di ridonare.
God is the Holy Spirit who is continue and being of love and a whirling movement and warm. St. John of the Cross was saying that the symbol of the Holy Spirit is a flame that burns continuously. We begin from there and say, why does the world exist? St. John of the Cross would answer immediately, it exists because one day the Father told his Son, my Son, I have given you all. I want to give you something still. And it is the creation he offers to the Son as the bride to love. The Son says, I welcome the gift you have given me, and I will be responsible for everything that exists. This is what we believe. In creation there is man. Male and female, he created them. And male and female means that he created the human being in such a way that the same flesh expresses in its concreteness, in its tangibility, in its beauty, in its confirmation, the need that one has of the other, and the gift that one can do to another, and may receive from the other. This unique flesh is a way in which God chose to make us progenitors. In Sicily, children are often called creatures.
Sono chiamati le creature. Allora non so, arriva il papà a casa, come stanno le creature?
So when the father comes home, he says to the wife in Sicily, how are the creatures?
Che dolcezza e che fede che c'è dentro questo, se lo capissimo davvero. E allora il disegno trinitario della famiglia.
There is a Trinitarian design of the family. It is a man and a woman in diversity, in need, in joining the fertility, in bringing into the world a new creation. Every human being is unique in the world. So now let's read a little bit of Piguet, where he puts into his mouth God, all the way to the defense of human freedom. I have created the freedom. With all the troubles that freedom brings, but how was I supposed to deny him this? It could not exist love that is not free. But free means everything which we have provoked. Darkness, sins. God the Father responds, yes, I have given you freedom because it was the greatest gift. I knew what would happen, but I also knew that my Son would come and take everything in his arms and in his heart. And thus comes out the word redemption. And we think of our Father. He was made from flesh, and he suffered. It is a whole story of love and family. When Jesus comes to earth, all of humanity becomes his family. all of humanity becomes a bride
la persona di Gesù.
before the person of Jesus.
Abbiamo fatto a Pasqua tutta la vicenda di Cristo.
We follow the whole story of Christ, which we have done at Easter,
L'amore non si arrende.
where love never surrenders.
Si lascia perfino ferire,
It,
si lascia uccidere.
it leaves even to be beat up, injured, killed.
Grida
But when he is on the cross and cries,
che arriva quasi, diciamo, sull'orlo del non poterne più,
Jesus rides almost on the brink of not being able to do it.
dei cieli,
In front of the threshold of the kingdom of heaven, he still has the power to tell his thief, "You shall be with me."
ecco, allora noi chiediamo Dio Padre, Creatore, la persona in comunione,
We believe in God the Father, Creator,
la redenzione,
a person in communion.
crediamo che è possibile il
We believe that they are possible to the redemption, the forgiveness.
questa storia, che è una storia strana, però bellissima, una storia della Chiesa,
And we think of the history of the church, the story of the church,
poveri peccatori,
the story of poor sinners
impara giorno per giorno.
who learn day by day to live together with Jesus.
Mi verrebbe da dire che impressione vi farebbe il Vangelo
What impression
un giorno dicesse
would you have with the gospel if one day I say,
che Gesù abbia a che fare con i peccatori? Dai,
it is bad that Jesus has to do that with the sinners?
la Maddalena,
Zacchaeus, go away. Madalena, just go away.
tutte le pagine un po'
So all of the pages a little bit
il Vangelo viene bello, pulito, insomma,
heavy.
Gesù, i credenti,
We just take them away. So the gospel becomes nice and clean.
i vestitini puliti, che Vangelo sarebbe?
What gospel would that be?
Che quando tu mi vieni a dire ma la Chiesa con tutte le sue cose, con tutti i suoi,
But when you come to say to me, but the church with all of its problems,
che bella la Chiesa,
I say,
quanto malata per quanto
how beautiful the church. For how much it is aggravated and sick, it is loved by Jesus.
quanto più a volte è appesantita, tanto più è amata.
And as much as it is sometimes burdened, the more it is loved.
Quando si tratta della tua famiglia,
Because when it comes to your family and you see difficulties, burdens, and you try to deny them all,
vedi le difficoltà, vedi i pesi, vedi che la donna che hai scelto non ti dà più quelle soddisfazioni che tu pensavi, o il contrario,
all the things that can happen
tentato di
in your family.
tutto, di dire la parola indissolubilità ti fa tremare,
And you want to even think about the word indissolubile, frightens you.
e invece la parola indissolubilità è la parola più libera che esista.
But rather, indissolubility means that
Spezzerei in ogni momento,
what I am frail, weak, petty, would break in every moment. You, Jesus, you do not ever break.
quante altre cose. Abbiamo mai capito, per esempio, che nel matrimonio,
Have we ever understood that in marriage,
sacramento
that is a sacrament,
grazia, nella famiglia che è sacramento,
sacrament is everything.
dirò una cosa eccessiva, ma la faccio solo per
I will say one thing that is excessive,
non in quanto peccato, ma in quanto sono i momenti in cui qualcosa grida
it is that the sacrament even sins, not as sins, but because they are moments in which something shouting that there is need of forgiveness and that there is another sacrament.
allora,
Everything is sacrament.
mentre viviamo in un mondo in cui ti viene
So, while we live in a world in which we are told that it is a whole question of pieces to be combined among them as you want,
siamo degli artisti
we are artists who have seen the design, the house,
visto la bellissima tela che il
the canvas
creatore ha dipinto fin dall'inizio.
that God the Creator has painted from the outset.
Non riesco mai a dimenticare un quadro che esiste
There is a painting in the Museum of Montreal
dove c'è Dio,
where there is
vecchio creatore, padre,
God the Creator
ha una tela come un
in
pittore
front of a canvas as a painter
e sta dipingendo sulla tela
who is painting on the canvas the Immaculate Conception.
del disegno a livello più alto, più bello. O se volete, io posso immaginare il Padre Eterno che disegna la Sacra Famiglia con un bel San Giuseppe, con una bella Madonna, con un bel bambino che magari gioca in quella bottega. Disegno di Dio. Sono questi
The design of God.
che noi abbiamo conosciuto.
This is what we have known.
Se Dio grida nella storia e
If
nella
God cries out in history and in our conscience
fanno i padri che ci dicono guardate,
and warns us that this is a war,
vogliamo metterci al servizio della verità.
we want to put ourselves at the service of the truth of love.
Chiunque ha a che fare con una famiglia
Anyone has to do with the reality of the family, irrespective of the way in which this happens, especially for those of you who are forming it. Put in the right position to be able to work.
questa situazione giusta si chiama,
The correct position is called prayer.
in cui si dice a Dio, so
In prayer we say to God,
che tu mi
I know that you are the love. I know that you love me.
riuscirò
I know that only together with you I will be able to learn to love.